Breaking news out of New Orleans, where police say at least 10 people are dead after a vehicle plowed into a crowd on Bourbon Street. ABC's Aaron Katersky is on the phone with the latest. Aaron, good morning to you. What are we learning?
This happened just after 3 a.m. local time in New Orleans, in one of the most iconic places in the country, celebrating New Year's Eve. There was still a large crowd on Bourbon Street when, according to New Orleans police, a small white pickup truck intentionally drove into that crowd. The driver, I'm told, is not yet in custody. There are 10 people dead. There are 30 people injured. And Morgan, police have not said anything more other than it appears this was some kind of an intentional act. The scene is still very much active, but we know the police superintendent, Ann Kirkpatrick, and the mayor of New Orleans are getting ready to brief, but 10 dead, 30 injured just after 3 a.m. local time in New Orleans after New Year's Eve. The police, I can tell you, said they had been staffed 100%. They had brought an additional 300 officers on duty from other police departments and agencies to help, because not only did they have New Year's Eve celebrations, they have a big parade today, the Sugar Bowl tonight, a very busy time in a place that is packed with tourists at this time of year, Morgan.
Yeah, and Aaron, we know that this had been a top concern for federal officials. In fact, we are seeing just a large police presence on this live feed coming in. We know that their police were ramping up and preparing for this particular event, this celebrations like they do around the world here. But federal officials had been warning in the days leading up to these New Year celebrations about the possibility of these lone attacks and this being a top concern. What do we know about that?
This had been a concern, especially after the Christmas market vehicle ramming attack in Germany less than 2 weeks ago. And there were other reasons. The vehicle ramming attacks, federal law enforcement officials have been saying, remain a top tactic that foreign terror groups had been interested in carrying out. We also know that in recent days, law enforcement officials in this country had been picking up increased online chatter from ISIS propagandists that were calling on followers to try and carry out some kind of an attack. It's important to say, in New Orleans, the police have not released any kind of a motive. They haven't said, exactly what this was, other than it was intentional. And so that we don't know what it was. But you're exactly right, Morgan, because in recent days, especially after what happened at the German Christmas market, the possibility of a vehicle ramming was forefront in people's minds. The small vehicle that drove through Bourbon Street and Iberville appeared to have some bullet holes in it. So we don't know whether that was from police, whether there were others who were shooting at it, or what exactly happened. We're waiting for police to precisely explain.
Yeah, we're waiting on that briefing. And Aaron, hold tight with me, because we understand that we have a potential witness who watched all of this unfold from the balcony. We want to go to that witness right now. And we have them on the phone. Good morning. So we're still waiting to get this witness on the phone with us. But, obviously they witnessed all of this, what we're learning unfold from the hotel balcony in Bourbon Street. Let's bring back in Aaron Katersky, because, Aaron, you were just talking about federal officials, being prepared for this and warning about this in the days leading up. We know that driver potentially still on the run, not in custody. What are we learning about this particular suspect?
I'm not sure the authorities know much, although they do have camera footage that they're going to be able to study, and assuming they've done that already, because this is an area of New Orleans that would be blanketed in cameras. It is so popular, as you well know, Morgan, with tourists. There's a lot of eyes on it. The New Orleans Police Department will no doubt be studying that footage and have done so already, as we've seen some of the images come out. They'll be looking to see who emerged from that vehicle, in what direction the individual may have gone, and then they'll do their best to track them from there. They'll also undoubtedly, through camera footage, as best they have it, work backwards to try and figure out where the individual began.
Yeah, so that manhunt is continuing. We are also learning more about this particular incident because police and authorities are giving a news conference. We want to go right to that briefing. Let's listen in.
First of all, we do know that the city of New Orleans was impacted by a terrorist attack. It's all still under investigation. You'll hear more after me. However, I have been in direct contact with the White House, with Governor Landry, and of course a unified command who is present here. What I'm asking at this time are prayers for those who have lost their lives in the city of New Orleans due to this tragedy. In addition to that, I'm asking the public to stay clear of 8 blocks around Bourbon Street. Stay clear from Bourbon Street, 8 blocks around. Very active, and again, a unified command is in place right now. I'm going to ask Chief Kirkpatrick to give you an update. You're then going to hear from our agent in charge relative to the FBI. So at this time, Chief Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to give you as much of the information I possibly can. We are going to give you an update a couple of times today. So we will give you just the basics this morning, all right? We had this event started at about 3:15. It did involve a man driving a pickup truck down Bourbon Street at a very fast pace, and it was very intentional behavior. This man was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could. It was not a DUI situation. This is a more complex and more serious based on the information we have right now. With respect to numbers, we have right now, and as you already know, this could change throughout the day. We do know that there are 26 injured people who are at UMC Hospital. We know we have 4 at Turo, 4 at Oshner Baptist, 1 at Tulane, but even as I was walking out the door, I believe I have an unconfirmed additional people who have been taken to other area hospitals, possibly on the east side. But we will give you as many correct numbers as we can as the day progresses. It is a very tragic situation for me to tell you that we know we have 10 people that this man killed on Bourbon Street. That is why we do not want anyone on Bourbon Street today. Wherever you see yellow tape, please do not violate this tape. This is in order to protect and stabilize the scene. We have information to a certain degree of the demographics of those who are in the hospital right now. We do not know at this point how many could be tourists versus locals, but from the information I have right now, it seems the majority are locals versus tourists. What I also can tell you is that this man, this perpetrator, he fired on our officers from his vehicle when he crashed his vehicle. 2 of our officers have been shot. They are stable, and we will give you an update on them. I have yet been able to go to the hospital. I will be leaving here for us to go visit our officers. We have called in every officer that we have. We have so much appreciated our partnerships who have also offered us staff. Last night, we had over 300 officers out here. And because of the intentional mindset of this perpetrator who went around our barricades in order to conduct this, he was hell-bent on creating the carnage and the damage that he did. Because of the nature and the indices that we have on the scene, and we have enough information that the FBI will be taking over this investigation. And with that, I am going to be asking, this is the assistant agent in charge. This is Agent Duncan, Special Agent Duncan, and she has taken over this case on behalf of us and the FBI. As always, we will be in partnership with all of our partners. But Agent Duncan, if you want to have a few words for me.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning. My name is Alethea Duncan. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge for FBI New Orleans. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we'll be taking over the investigative lead for this event. This is not a terrorist event. What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found, and we are working on confirming if this is a viable device or not. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we're asking everyone to stay away from Bourbon Street, specifically from Canal Street to St. Anne. That is my ask. Once again, stay away from Bourbon Street, Canal Street, all the way to St. Anne until we can figure out what is going on. Our goal is to provide you additional information at the 11 a.m. press conference. Thank you so much, and we will be in touch.
Yes. I will say that we want our community and our visitors to continue enjoying. There's so much to enjoy about New Orleans, and we are going to make sure that our routes in the Superdome are safe today for the game. And yet we had this tragic event, and we're sorry again to everyone in our community. But we do want you to go about the day, as we say, just stay away from Bourbon. Okay?
Can she elaborate on the device? She did say something about the device.
We actually are not going to be taking questions this morning until we have more information. That's why we will give you an 11 o'clock briefing. So until then, please hold your questions. We will give you everything that we possibly can, okay? So 11 o'clock, we will see you at the headquarters, and we will go again from there, okay? No questions, no questions right now.
Right? The device is confirmed? Thank you all.
And if you were just joining us, you were just listening to Chief Kirkpatrick of the New Orleans Police Department after at least 10 people were killed in New Orleans on Bourbon Street after a car plowed into a crowd. We're learning that it was a man, a driver, believed to be a man driving at a fast pace. We heard the chief saying there that it appeared that he tried to kill as many people as he could. At least 31 people injured, taken to multiple hospitals around the city of New Orleans. At least 10 people killed. We also are learning this adds some complexity to the investigation here as well, that there was an officer involved shooting. At least 2 officers shot. They are in stable condition this morning. But obviously, you know, this is a horrific situation playing out just as so many people were celebrating the new year. I do want to bring back in ABC's Aaron Katursky. Aaron, you were listening to that particular press conference. This obviously heightens the concern, not just there on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, but also around the country. What's your take on what you heard, and where does this investigation go from here? Because you've got multiple investigations at this point. You've got the officer involved shooting. You've got the driver plowing through the crowd there. We also know that the FBI is taking over on this. You know, feel free to jump in here, Aaron, with your thoughts. What are we thinking?
Well, I think you heard the police leaving no doubt that this was an intentional act. You heard the police superintendent in New Orleans, Ann Kirkpatrick, say the individual, the man who drove a small white pickup truck very fast down Bourbon Street and plowed into a crowd, was hell-bent on causing carnage. He has killed 10 people. There are now 36 that have been injured and taken to area hospitals, and she said those numbers could change throughout the day. You also heard that the man emerged from the vehicle and began shooting at New Orleans police officers. 2 of those officers are now in stable condition at the hospital. The superintendent is on her way to visit them, but the individual is not in custody. But the authorities are confident enough to understand the man's motive that they are now turning this over to the FBI. The local police called it an act of terrorism. The FBI did not use that term. Morgan, that reflects a legal difference for when the individual is caught and charged. That'll be a determination for prosecutors. but you heard the local police say they're confident this was an act of terrorism. They seem to know enough about who the individual may be, what his motive may be, that's what they're calling it. They also found a number of improvised devices, according to the FBI official on scene, and they're testing those to see what the viability was. But this seems to involve a number of things in a terror-type playbook, Morgan, of vehicle ramming, gunfire, improvised devices. It is very complex, and the first priority, in addition to treating the wounded, will be to try and identify and nab the suspect.
Yeah, that urgent manhunt now underway. ABC's Aaron Katursky. Hold on just a second. I do want to bring in ABC's Josh Margolin. Josh, you're learning some breaking news about the situation and specifically the suspect as well.
Yeah, good morning, Morgan. The police superintendent didn't address the manhunt or the perpetrator, as she called him, but we are understanding from law enforcement that they believe he is dead. He apparently, as Aaron said, he apparently engaged the police after he crashed his vehicle in the Bourbon Street area. Apparently, according to the police, he did fire and injure 2 officers, but they believe that he is dead, and that probably, given how these things work, is leading to why the police are so confident in saying that this was an intentional act. They're calling it a terrorist act. Obviously, they're not actually saying it was terrorism, but it's also a different kind of a case. Now, we don't have an ongoing manhunt, but they are looking at possible, IEDs, a possible explosive device. They're looking at exactly what happened. They're looking at the video. They want to examine all of the actions before the incident and then what happened when the truck was plowing through the Bourbon Street area.
All right, Josh, thank you for that reporting. Right now, let's go to Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas. So, Pierre, we understand that there's no longer a manhunt in this particular case. There seems to be a little bit of a snag in terms of what the FBI or federal officials are going to categorize this particular incident as in terms of terrorism. But what are you learning on your front, and what goes into that in terms of, categorizing this particular incident as terrorism? Where does this investigation stand? What are some of the key factors that they're going to be looking at?
Well, the FBI was brought in early this morning, shortly after 6 a.m. They received a report from local authorities about a mass casualty event. They were immediately told that it involved multiple fatalities, multiple injuries. You have the numbers. And it's clear from the FBI's early engagement that local authorities believe this likely was an act of terror. Now, the FBI is not going to use that term initially until they get more information, but this has all the hallmarks of exactly the kind of incident the FBI and federal law enforcement have been warning about for weeks, as we've said a few moments ago, namely intentional act, plowing into the crowd. You heard the police chief superintendent say that driving at a high rate of speed, trying to kill, quote, as many people as he could. Also the fact that the suspect was armed with a rifle, it appears to be, according to sources, and also whatever these improvised devices are, whether they're viable or not, it clearly was intended to confuse or, disrupt the situation. So this is now an incident of the highest priority. You also heard the superintendent mention that the White House has been contacted. So I suspect the Attorney General has also been briefed by now. So, again, the key will be finding out as much as they can about the suspect. Did this person have any support? And what exactly is it? Is this an act of domestic terrorism? Is this an act of international terrorism? Is this a deranged individual? These are all the questions that law enforcement will lock in on at this moment because, again, you have an incident on a New Year's holiday, crowds around the country doing various sporting events and other kinds of events. Law enforcement will want as much information as possible on this. Again, horrific incident to start the new year.
Yeah, horrific incident to start the new year and also to start the day, Pierre, because we also know that there were other celebrations taking place today and a parade that certainly heightens the security, not just here, but also around the world. I want to go back to ABC's Aaron Katursky, if we still have him on the phone. I want to talk a little bit more about just the timeline on how all of this played out. We understand that this particular suspect drove through the crowd. We know it was a pickup truck, but then from there, there were some sort of shots exchanged between, as Pierre pointed out, the suspect and the officers.
Yes. So it was about 3:15 a.m. local time in New Orleans. There was still a big crowd on Bourbon Street. And according to the police superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick, the suspect, hell-bent on causing carnage, drove around the barriers that had been erected to keep vehicles out and allow for just pedestrians on Bourbon Street, got around those barriers somehow, and then sped up and plowed into a crowd, a mix of tourists, but also mainly locals, according to police, injuring about 36, killing 10. As soon as the suspect exited the small white pickup truck, there was an exchange of gunfire. He began shooting at police officers who were rushing to the scene. 2 of those officers had been shot. They are now in stable condition at the hospital, and it appears, according to law enforcement sources, that the officers returned fire and killed the suspect, who was found dead at the scene. The authorities knew right away, Morgan, enough about the individual that they were instantly able to ascribe a terrorist-type motive to this, call the FBI, which will take over the investigation, and when they get more information, they'll label it whatever they want. But the police were understanding the individual's motive enough at this point to call it an intentional act of terrorism.
And we know that they'll be looking into a possible motive when it comes to this. We also are learning more about this from a witness who saw this all unfold from a hotel balcony. Listen to what they had to say. We'll go to that.
Around 3:15, we heard a pop, 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 pop sound, followed by a sound that sounded like fireworks going off, like a big firework all at once. And it turned out that was the crash. So that pulled us out of bed, peeked through the curtains to see, what was going on. And at that point, we saw cops all over the place, stacking up, rifles trained on the car. So, peeking through the windows, we kind of backed away to make sure that the situation was okay. Saw the cops telling people in the other buildings, like, stay inside, stay inside.
So again, you were just hearing from a witness who says that they saw and heard all of this unfold from a hotel balcony on Bourbon Street, described hearing several pops to the point that it sounded like fireworks, couldn't really tell the difference. You were also seeing some video of what appeared to possibly be that white pickup truck at the center of this investigation. I want to take us back to ABC's Josh Margolin for the latest on this. Josh, you just broke some news for us regarding the suspect. We know that there is no longer a manhunt. And why is that? Tell us what's going on at this hour.
Well, obviously, it's key to make sure that the public is safe. People that are outside the area, obviously, it's a terrible loss of life. As the police superintendent said, it was real carnage in the center at Bourbon Street. But there is no manhunt. The police are looking at what looks like might be an explosive device, see if it's armed, see if it's active, see if it's dangerous. And then they're going to move quickly to the investigative phase. What happened? Why did it happen? As Pierre reported, is this somebody who's just angry and decided to act out? Is there some inspiration from some foreign terrorist group, from some domestic terrorist group? That's the issue here. Was this caused by the person acting out on behalf of a cause?
And all of that will certainly be under investigation. As we know, the FBI is taking over this investigation, but certainly a horrific incident playing out in the city of New Orleans.